Hey, good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. So, most dynamic CRM developers focus only on writing codes, but real enterprise projects fails because developers ignores best practice, performance optimizations, development standard, security, and maintainability. So, in this video, I will share the most important CRM development do's and don'ts that every developer should follow in real-time projects. To everyone who already even have less experience, even a experienced person, either he is a technical lead, developers, or solution architect. Even most of the developers do basic, ignorance related to what we have to do. But today we will learn the benefits of this particular most standard or most utilizing topics which I'm going to cover today. So be ready. So for today's session. Meantime, I'm sharing my screen so that in sort of time we can start quickly. Hey, good morning, everyone. Today I have some less time so that we can cover quickly this particular topic. So the purpose of this sessions, we have you everyone know what we have to do, what we have to follow in terms of our productivity, so that we should not miss any specific content, whatever we have to follow here. So let me share, let me open dynamic CRM environment so that I can start here. Where is our CRM environment? Okay, let me share my screen here quickly. So do you have any questions like me covered so far, or we are good? Sometimes I need feedback from your side also. So if you are facing any issues, why do's and don'ts are matters here. So let's discuss. Suppose in dynamic CRM development, it is not like only we have to write code and creating customization and debugging, troubleshooting. In most enterprise projects, poor development starts create production issues. Suppose a person they have written code like it is taking more times. It is not handling the null checks. They are checking the only happy path, but they have not considered here in the negative testings. So what it will create different types of issues which may involve here production issues. So suppose if one person develop one logic, but it is creating more production issues due to different data types, null checks data, performance problems, security, issues here we may have. Why security issues? Maybe we have written that level of code which is not supported currently. That might be some API endpoint, maybe deprecated, which is not acceptable. Maybe there are some security loopholes, so we have to consider all those things. We have to keep updating their versions if we are using any API here. So difficulty for maintaining the codes. Suppose one person written code, it could be JavaScript code, it could be plugins code in such a manner so that he has written all the code into one files only and even a single function only. So it's very difficult to maintain the source code also. Upgrade challenges. If one person has written one code, it is not like either in there is a Hindi one sentence खुद पढ़े या खुदा पढ़े. So it is not like whatever we have written, only we can read it. No one can understand or read it. So we may face upgrade challenges here. Maybe Suppose it is working in our lower environment or our dev environment, but whenever we are deploying it into production environment, the deployments will always fail. So many projects fails because developers focus only functionality and ignores here scalability, maintainability, performance, security, and governance. It is not like 100% dynamic CRM projects, always successful. There is a huge number where Microsoft Dynamics developed project may fail due to this specific ignorance. Maybe you are a good developer, but you are ignoring most of the features, most of the content which you have to consider. That's why I try to include all those points, whatever increasing your efficiency, which is increasing your value addition to any projects. So try to complete this particular session so that at least you have complete understanding here. So real-time projects challenge, common problem seen in projects, hard-coded values inside plugins. Suppose if we are doing here some specific logic means, suppose if we need to retrieve some value based on the here some specific that lookup value or some specific product, suppose if we are telling, if we are retrieving value or we are making some if else conditions based on the hard code values or GUIDs. So whenever we are moving into one environment to another environment, maybe GUID may be changed, so our code may be break in that case. Large JavaScript files with no structure, even we have written so many files. Even suppose I told you, suppose if I need to write one function to add a new business logic, and even we have already one JavaScript written on a form load, even I can check, I have that capability, I can check in the form load like is there any file written. So I'm not checking that file, I'm writing a new functions and I'm creating a new web resource, and we are as a developer we are thinking, hey, I don't want to spoil our existing code due to urgency, due to different types of priority. Here I'm writing my own web resource, I'm adding into the form level. So what is the issue here? It will work, my code will run, it will not create any impact, but that is not the best practice here. Try to adjust your code in your existing web resource and try to use your code. Either is there any common function written in the existing code, either it is a plugins or it is a JavaScript, try to adjust that code. Try to write your code in such a manner so that you can reuse your code. Direct product customization, this is another big problem. So there are some developers, maybe some developers in terms of they don't know this particular terminology. I have seen many people, if suppose there are some basic requirement, so they are thinking like, if I have to do this one in our dev environment, then I have to do this one to SIT, then I have to do this one to UAT. Why I cannot do directly in the production? Even if they have that production access, so sometimes to save their time, to avoid any process, they are directly changing in the production, and they are thinking, I can do in the production same thing I can do in the SIT, I can do in the lower environment, everywhere I can do it. So what is the problem? If it is a managed component in the production, it will create an unmanaged layer. At that time, that specific time, maybe that issue may be resolved, but maybe in next deployment, if something is coming, you are not able to even you know uh, check that my changes are not reflecting due to this unmanaged layer. So avoid to do any direct customization in the production environment. Unmanaged solution dependency issues. So so there are many places where there are some dependency is related to, like there are some unmanaged solution dependency issues. Maybe there are some unmanaged solution and there are some managed solution dependency also there. So try to avoid to create any unmanaged layer so that it will create a dependency. Poor naming convention, that is a biggest issue I have seen, even especially for junior candidate, especially for even the who is try to learn, or they are into beginning stage. They have created fields like they can create a direct field. Even they are not able to understand what is the purpose of here publisher, why publisher is creating, and even they are creating naming like test one. Why they are creating field name like they cannot think like what is the use of this particular field, what is the use of this particular tables. Even now, even if you are not able to think, you can check with your team members, your seniors, your TL, even to recreate that particular field. Suppose if you have created one field and you have deployed into the SIT and even sometimes in the production, if someone checked that particular field name, so even they don't like that field, so they make it who has created this particular field, just try to delete this one and perform this particular activity, just try to create this particular name, how much time it will take, think about that one. You are creating a new name in dev environment, and then you need to change all the dependency, like if you have created a field and added into the view level, added into the form levels, added into the JavaScript level, added into the plugins level, added into the any workflow or any power automate level, anywhere, if you have added into that one, you have to replace it. And then if you have created that field and even that typecasting is same, you have to perform that same field into the production, you have to move that particular form into the production, you have to move the view, and even the other field also you have to move, and even you have to do the data migration, whatever data moved into the old field into the new form. So that is also a separate big activity if someone don't accepting the naming convention. So even if you don't have any clarity, ask the naming convention in a specific sheet during the initial stage only, to avoid all those shit. This is very big challenge for, especially for initial stage developers. Now the next big problem here is duplicate business logic. So suppose I have written a common function where I need to maybe a developers can pass a field name and a here the hide and show. Suppose I have written a hide and show common function, and you need to pass there a variable that field name and that either true or false, and that field may be hide also. Then even without checking into the existing code, you are writing a new functions. Why? Who will maintain that code? Take 5 or 10 minutes to search, like required, not required, if we have written any such logic in any existing file, so that if that code is already written, you need to utilize the same functions or same code. That is the one example I have given you. Otherwise, during the code review level, your code will reject again. You have to revert your changes, you have to rewrite your code, and then you have to raise a PR again and then perform that logic. So some of the people, some of the developers, they can simply say, what is the issue? We are not denying, like we are not doing. But why you are not following, that is the main biggest problem. We can avoid all those iterations. So if we can avoid all those iterations, why we are doing all those action again and again? So naming convention, duplicate business rule, plugins infinite loops. Suppose if you are updating one field and you are even calling that particular plugin, suppose there is one field like status. On change of this particular status, if that status is changing, you need to update that status field into the next field, next stage, and you are doing that activity inside the plugin. So what will happen if you are calling same plugin on change of that status field and you are updating the same field in the plugin? So it will do the infinite loop. How to break that one? We can check the additional condition. If my code will run if the status is this one only, my code is is keep if the here the plugin depth is more than 2, it will call only 2 times, 3 times, or maximum whatever with the logic. But you have to define the depth in the plugins to avoid any infinite loop. I'm not here to explain the depth keyword, the benefit of that. You can even check that depth functionality in the plugins. Long running synchronizations plugin. Suppose if you have to perform some logic in the synchronous plugins, which is a long running. So try to avoid any logic which is taking more than 2 minutes. Either you have to convert that logic in the Azure functions, or maybe you have to convert your logic into another place. But avoid any logic which is long running in the plugins code. Security role misconfiguration. So you have developed, you have created few new security roles, and you are not even considering and validating, so that in which specific teams we have defined what types of role. Maybe in initial stage, initial levels, we have defined, we have configured properly. But if there is a new tables coming based on the new requirement, new features enhancement, new user story implementation, we are giving security roles. Either we are not giving the security role on those newly created tables, or we are giving the higher permissions to those tables, and even we are giving some of the roles, those roles into some specific roles, and we have not asked like these particular tables are newly created, so what is the use in other branches, or is there any impact, or what should be the access level for all those security roles? We should ask all those query during the grooming calls in the initial stage only, so that we can do the proper estimation. That is very important information that we have to consider. And next thing is missing deployment documentation. Missing deployment documentation means, suppose if we have to deploy something, we have a release item, we have a release list, we have suppose 20 user story item, we have to create a consolidated solution event. Suppose we have to create a PR that we have to merge into based on our deployment item. But one person is on leave, which also supposed to add their items in this particular PR. What to do? Do we need to create a surprise like some of the components are missing due to that person dependency. So before doing any deployment, we have to create a deployment documents, so that everything we have to consolidate into a document, so that anyone can refer and anyone can create the PR based on the the documents component. So here, what we will here understand: CRM development standard, proper customization approach, enterprise implementation practice, development do's and don't, performance optimization techniques, secure deployment, development standards, and development or deployment best practice. So, solution architecture and planning. What we have to do best practice before here development. Understand the business requirement properly. That we already discussed here. Never start development directly without functional understanding. If you are not able to understand what is the functional requirement, don't start any development. You should understand why this functionality or why this feature is needed, what is the use of this functionality, how to test this particular functionality even if I have implemented it, where to find this particular, and in which particular navigation I need to navigate to perform this particular testing, what is the existing functionality, if we need to implement this functionality, what is the change. So you should understand all those terminology, then only you can understand the functional understanding. The gap analysis means what is current behavior of the features or the applications, and what we have to do. Is there any gap, like they have explained the requirement, but we have identified these things also need to implement as part of this particular functionality. So gap analysis also we have to do. Security impact analysis. So suppose I have given you example, like suppose there is a new table we have to create. Is there any change we have to do as part of this particular new that tables? So in which specific security role, which specific access level we have to give. So all those aspect we have to analyze before starting the development. Even if suppose if we have created a new table, so we have to understand if is there any impact on the model driven app and even the portal side also, which specific uh, models or model driven app we have to enable this particular link also if this is a new user story. Performance consideration. Suppose if we have, even if we have implemented, it is working fine in there, it is working properly with limited data, but how it will perform when we are deploying this particular feature in the production. Suppose we have created a report, we have created Power BI report or SSRS report or any report. We have checked our reports, like it is taking less than 20 seconds if we are running this particular report. But what happen if we are including huge data, like suppose 1 year data? We have to run this report for 1 year data. What will happen? What is the strength, what is the count here for 1 year data? So that performance level also we need to consider. Scalability analysis also we have to do, like how scalable it is. So what is the here utilization, use, and everything we have to understand before starting any development. So recommended development approach: follow here layered architecture here. So suppose we have, first we have, suppose if we have joined a new organization, why we need kt means knowledge transfer, how they are following their development approach. It is not like what I know, what they are following. If there is a gap, there is a explanation, there is a understanding gap, maybe we may learn something maybe we can suggest something which we can, increase the efficiency for every teams. So presentation layer we may have business logic layers, we may have data layer, we may have integration layers. It totally depends like how they have integrated, but this is the best approach we have to do. So suppose if we are, even they have performed perfectly this particular structure, you are here like, hey, I am a developer, I know everything, I can write everything in a one load file. Then why we need presentation layer? Why we need business logic layer? Why we need data access layer? Why we need integration layer? Everything I can write in a one file, and they are mixing all logic inside a one plugins. Sometimes some good developers, even they are not able to adjust, or they are not able to understand the logic how they have written in this particular structure. Even if they are thinking like we are very good developers, we have written 100 of plugins, we have written 500 of plugins, but if the code is written in a good format, even they are stuck. They are not able to understand what, why they have so written this logic in that level of complication. So try to understand their existing architecture. So avoid mixing all logic inside one plugins. It is not like now in a day we are doing mostly. We are giving the prompt, we are asking, here our different types of AI models, and they are explaining. And large, monolithic JavaScript files here, everything they are writing JavaScript code like they have written 6,000 of line, 7,000 or line, and they are keep adding. They are creating some, common files. They can call the different types of naming convention, one file inside another files. Then that is the use of the namespace, but they are not following. That's why there are many projects those are broken. So here out of the box, decide proper customization approach. There are many things here, even I need to explain you guys so that at least you can understand. But due to the time limitations, let's quickly wrap up it. So use out of the box features first, business rules. Suppose first you need to understand the requirement. If you understand the requirement, try to write any specific code if you can achieve any requirement with out of the box features first. So always check if this particular requirement I can fulfill with business rule or workflow, power automate, calculated field, roll up field, or model here commanding. So try to use those one first. Then after deciding that I cannot fulfill my requirement with these features, then try to use plugins, JavaScript, or custom API. That is the first thing. It is not like I know plugins. There is a one requirement like I need to calculate something which I can do the calculated field. I can do with the help of roll up field. And you are trying to write plugins everywhere. Why? So try to avoid anything which any hard code or any specific code which you can avoid. Customization should only happens when out of the box capability cannot fulfill the requirement. This is the punchline for your life, a developer's life. You have to, write this line into a, in a papers, and try to, paste this particular paper into your wall whenever you are, in your morning when you are woke up, and then you have to read this particular line, then only you can learn, or you can follow this particular sentence. Some of the sentence you have to maintain properly. Naming convention standard, this is also very 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 important thing. Sometimes some of the managers, some of the when the code review happens, some of the developers, they are removing, hey, this person is not having common sense. Even I have explained many times this particular person, even he has written good code, good logic, there is no error, there is the functionality is working fine, but he's not able to think in that manner, like he cannot identify the naming convention. Why? They are removing person, especially if you are working for a very big organization. It is not like you have to always work into that place only, if you are not able to adjust into the big organization. The benefit in working in big organization, you have a brand tag. In small scale company, you have to learn, you have to scale your capability, but it is not like every time you have to work in a, they may ignore all those things, but in very big organization, they have certain process you have to follow. In any case, naming convention, accounts entities, suppose we have entities new, maybe it is totally based on the publisher name. So this is the default naming convention Microsoft has given. Account details, so fields like customer detail status, plugins, accounts pre-create, validations plugins. So the naming convention, like I told you during that JavaScript development side, we have to create, we have to follow two specific plugins, one for ribbon, one for that form level customization. So based on the company policy, based on the company decision, you have to follow that one. So benefit here is easy maintenance, better readability, easy debugging, and faster onboarding for new developers. If we told like there is some here guidelines we have to follow, every developer they have to follow the same thing. So no need to take any burden for that one. Plugin development best practice. Plugin development standards. Plugins are powerful, but dangerous if implemented incorrectly. You have to understand this part. Do's for plugin development: use appropriate plugin stage pre-validations. When we have to use pre-validation, when we have to use pre-operation, when we have to use post-operation. Even in the if it is a synchronous, it is a sync or async also. You have to understand all those terminology, then only you can easily implement or easily understand all those items. Use early bound class also, early bound or late bound. I explained the same thing yesterday also while creating the early bound. You can check even what is the difference here, early binding and late binding. Advantage here, if you are utilizing early binding, most of the developers they are going for late binding only. They are just try to get the schema name and try to build the late binding only. But early binding is taking additional here some step, but it is for better performance, better intelligence, compile time checkings, reduce typo error, better maintenance maintainability. Avoid exercise late bounding deployment unless required dynamically. Okay, use tracing properly. I told you during this our plugins. So eye tracing, the use of this eye tracing. It is not like in the production environment we have capability, we can enable or debugging, and we can do the direct debugging in the production environment. This eye tracing service is always used in the production environment. So try to add proper tracing in your tracing that plugins code. log input parameters, log execution detail, log execution checkpoints. So all those here, different place we have to write all those, information into the eye tracing. Benefit: easier production debugging, better issue tracking, what issue in which particular place, in which particular level line of code it is failing, we can do properly. Handling exception properly, invalid, if we have to use try catch properly, exception handling is that one only. So it is not like I need to explain it very deeply. Avoid infinite loops, always checks context depth, that I already told you, depth in the plugins. Example, here is the depth, it will return if it is more than one, or maximum more than two if needed. If you have any sequencing in the plugins, maybe it may be dependent on the depth also. So try to add this particular condition based on your sequence in the plugin. So minimizing database calls. So bad practice, multiple retrieves calls inside loops. So here it is not like whatever needed we can utilize. Even if we can utilize some information from the configuration level, we have to do that level of configuration. Even if we need to add, or we need to pass some information, or if we need to skip any server side calls, and we can save some information even in the secure configuration or unsecure configuration, we can pass some information from where there itself. It is not like every time I need to call from the configuration entity. So try to use all those things. Use secure configuration, URLs, APIs, keys, credential here. That's why, to avoid any additional things. Even here you can use environment variable, Azure Key Vault, secure configurations you can do. Don't use in plugins here. Avoid long running synchronization plugin. Avoid existing API calls synchronously. Avoid unnecessary updates operation. Avoid recurrence here logic. Avoid large monolithic plugins classes. Avoid hard coded GUIDs. This is very important. Even real projects example, multiple retrieve, nested loop, synchronous API, all those, you have to avoid all those things here. So here your performance improve from 15 second to 2 second if you have to do all those things. So your page will be from 15 second to 2 second if you are doing all those things. Okay. So in JavaScript use namespace pattern, that I already explained you. It is not like we have to go for function based. Use naming convention so that you can call, your one common logic into another place. Form context properly, get form context, avoid any XRM page. This is the deprecated one. So don't use any deprecated line. Avoid one file more than 500 lines. Try to write your code in such a manner so that you can, use some common function from your common library only. Validate function, utility function, event specific functions. Async call properly, web API. Now try to use async call in the JavaScript. Don't use sync call. Even if you need to, sometimes you need to write sync, so you can use await, but try to use async function only. Right? All those things I have written here. Unsupported DOM manipulation was used here. So there are many things which you have to avoid in this particular during your development sessions. So here unmanaged solution UAT. So that solution best practice, managed versus unmanaged. So deployment environment, unmanaged solution UAT or production, and managed solutions. And when we have to use managed and unmanaged, so you have to understand from your organization. If your organization is maintaining only unmanaged solution in dev environment, then follow the same thing. It is not like I am following here managed solution. 1 minute. It is not like I am following or one organization following different approach and another organization following different approach, because another approach in my current company I'm following this approach, so I have to follow the same thing into the new approach, new company also. I have to get the KT information, like how they are following, we have to follow the same process. In some of the organization, they are following unmanaged solution, somewhere they are following managed solution. Either it is UAT or non-production UAT. So solution here segregation. Solution segregation it means core customization you have to maintain in one place, integration or security and reporting in a separate solution. Okay, major version example here, this one, minor, major. So these are the versioning control here, how we have to use major, minor, build and revision here. So this is the revision, this is the build, this is the minor and this is the major version. So try to follow this particular sequence, specific sequence. So I'm taking 30-second pause. Do you have any questions, any suggestions? Okay, so deployment also. Avoid direct production customization. We have to do couple, either deployment based on the CI/CD pipeline, or we have to use deployment in the export import utility directly based on the company policy. Maintain deployment documentation, components deployed, dependency steps, rollbacks plans, validation checklists. Even components deployed. What types of components we are going to deploy? What is the dependency here? What types of step we are doing during the deployment? What is the rollback plan? Something went wrong. How to recover our changes into that one? So validation checklist also we have to do, like if we have deployed properly or not. Security performance optimization, security best practice, follow here all those things here. Role level validations, suppose field level security where is required. So salary data we have to protect, financial data, sensitive information we have to protect. Audit here critical entities. Suppose if we have to enable some auditing in some of the entity. So do we need to do this particular configuration change after importing in the production environment? So those types of details we have to perform. Avoid unnecessary column set required fields only. So performance optimization, how to do that perform. Suppose I told you yesterday, suppose if I need to retrieve only one field from one specific GUID. So if I'm writing my query, select star from account and then which specific entity, so it will take additional time, and even in terms of the complete organization wise, it is taking more additional time. Avoid column set is equal to true. So what it will do, it is like select star, like we are doing in the SQL level. So yesterday we checked that part. So too many subgrids. Instead of views, optimize view and forms. So if we are having a form, so in the main forms, the landing forms, if in a same form we have too many subgrids, it will always take more time. Large JavaScript executions we have heavy synchronization process even the forms and view, it will take more time. So what we have to do, asynchronous plugins, power automate sync process, Azure service bus integrations, deployment release management. What is the best practice we have? Use here dev environment, SIT environment, UAT environment, and prod environment. Development environment is nothing where we have to do the new changes, we have to do any R&D, we have to do any POC, and then we have to move our changes into SIT environment where QA team have to verify those components, and maybe they can give the sign off. And also business team also need to do some basic testing. Once all those things are completed, we have to do the here regression testing in the UAT environments when we move that solution into the UAT. So the entire regression testing, either we whatever we have done, if it is breaking any existing functionality, or when we are moving our this particular fix into the production, what will happen? So in this particular environment, our QA team will do the regression complete testing, and then it will move into the production environment. So these are the basic things we have to follow release checklist here. Before deployment, we have to do the backup validation, we have to do the solution dependency validation, security testing, regression testing, and integration testing. Validate post deployment step. Post deployment step is nothing like whatever we have in the checks: plugins, workflow, integration, security role, business rules. So all those things we have to do. Even if we have moved any flow, so we have to check if any flow is breaking or what is the issue here. So recommended tools here, we already discussed all those recommended tools here: security role that explorer here, fetch XML builders, ribbon workbench, plugin trace viewer here. So use source control here. So here we most of the organization, they are storing the source code, JavaScript configuration, deployment script in a one place here. So we are storing those information in the Azure, GitHub, here GitHub, DevOps, or Jira, whatever we have different types of here tools. Common mistake developers make here: mistake hard coded values they are doing. This is the very massive issues we are facing here. Direct production customization, they are direct doing those level of issues here. No traceability, even they are not adding traceability in the plugins code. No logging, big mistake. Poor naming convention, this is a very bad things that I even told you. No deployment documentation, they are doing the development but they are not writing. When we are asking, your component is adding into the deployment list, can you add your component into the PR? They are, if they are thinking, hey, what I have done, I'm not able to recall. Oh, I missed this particular component, we have to raise a new PR. We are creating an additional bug into the production. Think about that one. Large synchronization operation, this will create performance issues. Using unsupported customization, suppose if there is a requirement, they have done any customization which are not supported, maybe there are some upgrades happen in the production environment, it is breaking our existing implementation. Ignoring security models, whatever Microsoft is suggesting, if we are not following that security model, there is a big mistake. No execution here, exception handling. So even if something is breaking, it is not like our entire process is breaking. Either it will show some specific, or there is a specific notification we have to get. No code review process. So there are many places we have seen like they are not following proper code review process during their development and deployment process. So try to follow all those best practice so that you can survive here. Mandatory review, code review, naming convention, documentation, deployment checklist, performance review, security validation, reusability, codability standard. So how we have to do? So we have to think, can this be done out of the box? Is this scalable? Is this maintainable? Will this impact performance? Is this secure? Is this supported by Microsoft? So if you have questions, those questions are answered yes, then we are good. Enterprise CRM developer success is not measured by how quickly we deliver customization, but by how scalable, how secureable, how stable, and how maintainable the solution remains after development. Right? So try to use this. Try to remember all those things. If you are following those best practice, you are safe, even especially for this AI era. Otherwise, you are always in the danger zone. If you understand writing the code, you only deciding like we are safe here. AI will not take our job. So you are thinking very wrong way. So hope you enjoy this session. You got some additional information, whatever you need. So try to connect tomorrow. Thank you everyone for today's session. Thank you very much. Let me tell you one thing. If you have any question, any query, just post your query here so that I can share my feedback. Thank you everyone. Yogendra is not here today. Thank you. Bye.